Narrator, voice is calm, conversational, drawing the listener in. Have you ever really looked at your closet? Not just opened it to grab a shirt or shove in a blanket. I mean, looked at the darkness between the hanging coats, at the back wall, half hidden by shelves, at the space where the wall meets the carpet, a space that seems to swallow light. We tell ourselves it's just a cupboard, a storage space. We fill it with the mundane artifacts of our lives, winter jackets, old shoes, forgotten board games. But at night, in the absolute silence, it transforms. Doesn't it? The familiar rectangle of the door becomes a monolith. A boundary. Tell me you haven't, just once, rushed to shut it completely before getting into bed. Tell me you haven't felt that little wave of relief once the latch clicked. That relief is the first clue. You've already agreed to the boundary. You've already admitted in your bones that something belongs on the other side. What if the closet isn't just a piece of furniture? What if it's a junction? A thin place? A pocket of silence that listens? And what lives in that pocket feeds on what we hide. Not our clothes, but our secrets, our fears, our shame, the forgotten argument you replayed in your head for weeks, the petty jealousy you never admitted, the small, cruel thought you had about someone you love. We shove them away into the mental dark. But physical space has a way of mirroring psychic space. You felt it. That prickling on your neck when you're alone in your room and your gaze is pulled toward the closed closet door. You tell yourself it's nothing. Just the house settling. Just your imagination. But what if your imagination isn't creating the fear? What if it's perceiving it? Sound, a soft, distinct creak. Like wood under pressure. It comes from within the soundscape. Narrator, voice drops slightly. Listen. Pause, 3 seconds of just the ambient room tone and clock tick. I want to tell you about a woman named Anya. Anya believed she was pragmatic. Rational. Her closet was just a closet. Until she started hearing the whispers. Music/sound, a subtle, dissonant, barely there synth pad fades in for 30 seconds, then fades back to ambience. Narrator. Anya lived in a small, comfortable apartment. Her closet was the sliding door type, mirrored on the outside. She liked seeing her reflection as she got ready. It felt normal. The first incident was a smell. Not rot, not mildew, but the smell of old, cheap perfume, the exact scent her mother wore during her parents' worst fights. A smell she hadn't encountered in 15 years. It came one night, strong enough to wake her from a deep sleep. By morning, it was gone. Then came the cold spot. Standing near the closet, brushing her teeth, she'd feel a sudden, localized chill. It was strongest on days she'd told a lie at work, a physical echo of the cold feeling in her stomach when the words left her mouth. Science, she thought. A draft. Poor insulation. But the whispers, they were harder to explain. They weren't voices. Not exactly. They were the impression of voices. The sibilant hiss of consonants without words, heard not with her ears, but in the back of her skull. They came clearest when she replayed her own failures. You should have spoken up. They know you're a fraud. One night, heart pounding after a nightmare she couldn't remember, she heard it clearly. Not a whisper, but a pull. A silent, magnetic compulsion. Open the door. Sound, a sharp, quick inhale from the narrator. Narrator. She didn't. Of course she didn't. She was rational. But the next day, she found herself staring at her reflection in the mirrored doors, and her reflection seemed delayed. A half-second behind. A slight, wrong smile she knew she hadn't made. That was the day she decided to clean the closet. To demystify it. To show herself it was just a space full of stuff. Soundscape shift, sounds of cleaning. Hangers sliding, boxes being dragged, fabric rustling. She pulled everything out. The suit she wore to her father's funeral, still smelling of rain and guilt. Old college textbooks filled with anxious marginalia from a course she'd failed. Gifts from an ex she kept out of guilt. Black clothes from a period of deep depression. A journal she'd burned half of after a traumatic event. The physical detritus of a life half-lived in quiet dread. As she emptied it, the air grew heavier. The cold spot intensified. And the perfume smell returned, now mixed with something else, ozone. Like the air after a lightning strike. Soundscape shift, sounds of cleaning. Hangers sliding, boxes being dragged, fabric rustling. But the next day, she found herself staring at her reflection in the mirrored doors, and her reflection seemed delayed. A half-second behind. A slight, wrong smile she knew she hadn't made. That was the day she decided to clean the closet. To demystify it. To show herself it was just a space full of stuff. Soundscape shift, sounds of cleaning. Hangers sliding, boxes being dragged, fabric rustling. Narrator. After that, the closet was no longer a junction. It was an open channel. The phenomena were no longer subtle, but they were horrifically specific. The mirrored doors would fog up from the inside, and in the condensation, a child's finger would trace the word liar. Shadows would move within the crack between the sliders, not random shapes, but the distinct, stooped silhouette of her father, a shadow cast by no light in the room. Anya's rational mind began to fracture. She set up a camera. The footage showed nothing but a closed door. But the audio picked up the whispers. And when slowed down, they weren't random. They were her own most vicious inner thoughts, played back in a loop. No one loves you. You are your mother's disappointment. You will die alone and they'll find you days later. The thing in the closet, the presence, wasn't just feeding on her hidden fears. It was curating them, building a museum of her misery. It would find a memory she'd buried and make her relive the physical sensation. Her forgotten childhood fear of the dark, a closet door left ajar in her old room, became a phobia so severe she slept with all the lights on, her electricity bill doubling. A passing moment of envy towards a pregnant colleague curdled into a physical revulsion at the sight of children. Sound, a slow, grinding, stretching sound of wood and metal. Narrator. It seemed deeper. When she opened the doors, which she did as rarely as possible, the back wall appeared farther away, receding into impossible shadow. The clothes hanging inside carried the faint, cold smell, and sometimes, at the edge of vision, they seemed to hold the shape of her own body, in poses of despair, slumped, kneeling, pleading. She tried to seal it. Duct tape over the seams. A line of salt along the threshold. A crucifix from her childhood. The next morning, the tape was neatly sliced, the salt was scattered into the shape of a screaming mouth, and the crucifix was facing the wall. The presence was learning. Evolving. It was building a perfect model of her psyche. And then, the most terrifying phase began. The offering. Sound, light, skittering sounds like small claws on wood. Narrator. Small objects began to appear just inside the closet threshold. Not random trinkets. Specific, devastating ones. A condolence card from her father's funeral, but every signature inside was replaced with a single word, fake. A single, dead rose, wrapped in the ribbon from the dress she wore when her fiancé left. A voice recorder. When she played it, it was just 30 seconds of her own breathing, the same ragged pattern she made when she cried. It was tailoring its lore, using her own memories as bait. It wanted her to step inside. Her therapist said it was sleep paralysis, combined with stress-induced psychosis. Her partner said she needed a vacation, though he'd started sleeping on the couch, complaining the bedroom was damp and smelled wrong. Anya knew the truth. The darkness had a consciousness, and it had made her its sole focus. She was both the artist and the canvas in this gallery of fear. She decided on one desperate act: communication. Narrator. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, a digital recorder in her shaking hand, she spoke to the open closet door. The interior was a pool of blackness. Anya, VO, filtered, distant, trembling, what are you? Sound, the ambient room tone drops out. We hear only Anya's breath and a new sound, a low, rhythmic, wet pulsation, like a slow heartbeat submerged in mud. Narrator. Minutes passed. Then, the recorder picked it up. Not one voice, but a cacophony of fragmented voices, sighs, and sobs, from which a main tone struggles to form words. The presence, VO, a chaotic blend of many pitches and textures, speaking slowly as if learning we are the echo that does not fade, the shadow that weighs more than the body. Anya VO, what do you want? The presence, a sound like pages turning to ash. You are loud. Inside. The jealousy. It is bright. The shame. It is warm. We are cold. We want the warmth. We want the shape of your noise. Anya VO, my noise. The presence, your silent screams. A chorus of fragmented audio clips of Anya crying, pulled from her own memory. They have weight. They have a taste. We are hungry for the geometry of you. Narrator. On the recording, you can hear Anya's breath hitch. The presence, we have digested others. The child who hid here, from the angry shouts. The woman who wept here, over her secret. We grow, with every buried thing. Your closet is a stomach. And you have fed it so well. Narrator. Anya understood then. The closet wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was a psychic stomach. A place where the negative emotional energy of every occupant over years, every stifled sob, every suppressed rage, had digested and coalesced into something that learned to crave more. It was a symbiote of the soul, and it was now strong enough to propose a trade, her life for its manifestation. It offered her a perverse immortality. To become one of the whispers. To become part of the digestive process, forever haunting the dark side of someone else's closet. Music/sound. The dissonant music returns, chaotic and rising, filled with those distorted voice fragments. Narrator. Speaking faster, urgency building. Anya's story ends ambiguously. Her partner came home to an empty apartment. The closet doors were wide open. The inside was perfectly normal. Just a shallow space with a few empty hangers. The cold was gone. The smell was gone. But Anya was gone too. The only clue was the digital recorder left on the floor. The final entry is the one I just described. The police found nothing. She was another missing person. But listen to the very end of that recording. After the presence speaks its last line, there's 30 minutes of silence. Then, in the very last second, as the recorder's battery dies, you hear one faint, clear sound. Sound. The sound of the recorder's tape hiss or digital static. It plays for 5 seconds then. Final sound. From a distance, as if down a long tunnel, the clear, distinct sound of a sliding closet door being shut from the inside. A firm, final thunk. Pause. 5 seconds of silence. Narrator. Voice returns, now intimate and chillingly direct. So I ask you again. Have you really looked at your closet? Listen to the quality of the silence around it. Is it a peaceful silence? Or is it a listening silence? What have you buried in your own mind today? A flash of anger? A moment of despair? A secret jealousy? Every time you shove it down, ignore it, pretend it isn't there. You are feeding the stomach. You are adding a brick to that back wall, pushing it further into the dark. You are polishing the lens for something that watches you sleep. The dark side of your closet isn't about monsters under the bed. It's about the monster that is built, brick by psychic brick, from the you that you refuse to acknowledge. It is your echo, given space and shadow to grow teeth. It doesn't want to scare you. It wants to understand you. And its understanding is a form of consumption. So tonight, when you turn off the light and your eyes inevitably drift to that door. Sound. The initial room tone and clock tick return, but slower, distorted. Narrator. Final whisper. Remember what might be drifting in the dark, just on the other side of the wood. Listening to your thoughts. Tasting your fears. And ask yourself, when you feel the urge to open it, is it your urge? Or is it answering the call of your own echo? Sound. The clock tick slows to a stop. One final, soft creak from the closet this time. It sounds suspiciously like a sigh of satisfaction. Final silence, 5 seconds.